Hello and welcome. We're on our way over to Winston-Salem to see the Tale of Two Cities. Mayors Alan Joines of Winston and Mayor Vaughn of Greensboro are going to give us sort of a state of affairs, state of the cities, if you will. And moderator Don Vaughn, he's going to be hosting up the festivities. So please join us for the next hour as we have the Tale of Two Cities.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is a special day for state and local government here at Wake Forest, as we have a tale of two cities that we have done for a number of years. Channel 8 is covering this, Cable 8 in Greensboro, and other people are here. It's indeed an honor, privilege to welcome you. This is the ninth time that we have done that, and it's been a great event. I'm going to introduce a man that certainly needs no introduction, that is new as can be to this law school, the dean. And everyone knows the dean by now. He's a wonderful guy, and we're so fortunate to have him, Dean Andy Klein. Andy, can you come up and just say a couple words of welcome?
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Don. As Don mentioned, my name is Andy Klein. I am the new dean here at the Wake Forest University School of Law. And it's really a privilege to be part of this special school and this very special community. I come here having served the past 23 years on the faculty at the Indiana University McKinney School of Law, which is in Indianapolis. I was dean of that school from 2013 to 2020, and then most recently I served as interim chancellor of the Indianapolis campus. Indianapolis is a capital city. And our law school in Indianapolis, has one of the nation's premier state and local government programs. So I come to this position understanding the importance that municipal government makes on people's lives, and also understanding that a lot of our students will end up in positions of leadership in state and local government. So having a program like this at our law school here at Wake Forest is really important to me, and I want to especially thank Mayor Joines and Mayor Vaughn. Thank you for giving time to be here and visiting with our students. I hope the program goes really well today. I know you'll learn a lot, and thanks for allowing me to give a quick introduction.
Dean, we're glad you're here.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was a season of light. It was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. We were all going to heaven, and some were going the other way. That was Charles Dickens, 1859, talking about the French Revolution. We've titled this wonderful hour that we will be here with two of the finest mayors in North Carolina. Nancy Vaughn from Greensboro, catch on to the last name, and our daughter Catherine's a student at UNC Chapel Hill who came in. Michael Fiore in my law office, a proud graduate of Elon Law School, top in his class, who will speak after we get through about the practicalities of state and local government. Alan Joines has been mayor of Winston-Salem now. My gosh, Alan, how many years has it been? 23 years, and just does an absolutely wonderful job. If you'd seen this town 30, 40 years ago, it's a different town now. You've seen this university, it's a different university that was here. Has just done a fabulous job. The world of Charles Dickens reigns true today. And I'm going to ask these folk some of the questions that you have asked and talk about. Are we in the age of darkness? Are we in the age of light? Are we in the age of wisdom or foolishness? How is Winston-Salem and Greensboro going now? Back in the day, they used to totally compete. When I grew up, my dad worked here in Winston-Salem for Western Electric. I grew up in Greensboro, and he would make the Red Road trek over here, and it literally was a 2-lane road from Winston-Salem to Greensboro. Now we have a belt line around Winston, a belt line around Greensboro, and these folk are doing good and great jobs. Nancy, I'm going to let you go first and just say a couple of words about the state of Greensboro. They have all read the website about Greensboro, and they all know about Greensboro, and some of them actually live there, and some live over here in Winston-Salem. Give us the state of affairs in Greensboro. Are we in the age of wisdom now, or in another age? What can you tell us? Now use your mic. Mom, we have to share that microphone.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? It is my pleasure to be here and to be with Mayor Joines again. I think we could probably flip and do each other's speeches by this time, but a lot of things have changed in the city of Greensboro and in the city of Winston-Salem just in the last few years. You know, for a long time, we were defined by the recession. We lost our legacy employers, furniture, tobacco, and textiles. But we have emerged out of that. I'm going to take one of Alan's lines, and it's been a 20-year overnight success. I heard you say that, and that's exactly how it feels in the city of Greensboro. It started a few years back when Publix announced that they were going to put their distribution center in Greensboro. It's 2.4 million square feet, brought real high-paying jobs.
That's 3 football fields long in one building.
Yeah, and it's a couple floors.
And a couple floors.
Yes. So that was a really good win for us. But it's been followed up recently by Toyota, who has put a $5.1 billion investment into the Greensboro-Randolph megasite. It is in Randolph County, but we are supplying the utilities. And I think that's one of the things that have changed, is that you're seeing a lot more regional cooperation. Another exciting announcement was Boom Supersonic Aircraft. They will be building their jet in PTI Airport. Marshall Aircraft, which is a European aircraft company, we're going to have their groundbreaking this coming Monday. There have been a bunch of other announcements. Sometimes we trade announcements back and forth. We were happy to see ProKidney open space in the city of Greensboro. It is about almost $500 million in investment. They are headquartered here in Winston-Salem. They looked at Greensboro because they couldn't find the right spot. And conversely,
A good kidney's hard to find.
well, the German fan manufacturer went to Winston-Salem. We do not try to cannibalize each other, which I think is really important. We work together collaboratively, and that's why we see these wonderful regional announcements.
Now, let me just give you a little background on Nancy. She came from Connecticut. Her father was head of basketball for the Atlantic Coast Conference. That's how you ultimately end up getting here. We both served on the city council together for a number of years. I was mayor pro tem. She became mayor pro tem. She became mayor. I went to the Senate, and now I'm teaching with y'all today. It's been a long ride. That's our daughter Catherine here, who is a senior at Chapel Hill and was on campus when they had the shooting. My gosh, was that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? It's incredible. But she's a realtor. She does a lot of different things, and probably not the most underpaid mayor in North Carolina. That could be Alan, that doesn't even take a salary, I believe. He's the most underpaid mayor, but you do it for the love of the job and love of the community. All right, now I'm going to turn, if you'll be seated, to Alan Joines. Alan Joines is an incredible guy. He went to Appalachian, that nearly beat Carolina.
Almost.
And went to
Double overtime.
Went to Georgia after that. He was deputy city manager here, am I correct, for a number of years, and then ran for mayor and has been mayor here, and the whole town is the much better for it. Alan Joines, what's the state of the community? Are we in good shape in Winston-Salem?
Absolutely. We're in great shape. No, Winston-Salem, as much as a lot of cities in North Carolina have gone through a metamorphosis from an old manufacturing base to one initially on service sector industries, and now one that I've kind of say we're based on innovation and rapid change. The company that Nancy alluded to, ProKidney, was a spinoff of some of the technological research that's going on in our innovation quarter, where actually what is happening is if you have a kidney problem, you have them going into dialysis, you can send in a blood sample, they'll formulate a formula for you, send it back to you, you can inject it, and your kidney will regenerate. It's pretty super duper stuff there, for goodness. So we kind of, Nancy got more jobs we did, but we got the headquarters, so we'll keep that going. Winston-Salem is robust. We've got a 3.3% unemployment rate. Our net new job rate is a little over 3%. Before the pandemic, we were at 3.7%, which was the highest of any of the southeastern metro areas. So we're humming along pretty well there. I mentioned the Innovation Quarter. If you haven't seen that, it's what we think is the largest urban research park in the country. That is about 300 acres tied right into a downtown center city. And so it's creating great jobs there as well. And Nancy, exactly right. We do collaborate on projects. Matter of fact, when Honda Jet was coming to PTI Airport, the city of Winston-Salem agreed to put $400 per job for anyone who worked over there that lived in Forsyth County. So that's been a great symbiotic relationship. So, Don, I'd say Winston-Salem is in the right direction. Still got a lot of things we need to deal with, such as violent crime. Unfortunately, we had another homicide last night, which put us up to 36, which is compared to 26 this time last year. Last year was a little bit of an anomaly because our rates were down 25%, but it's still a tough issue. And Nancy and I, basically all the mayors of North Carolina, have talked about the violent crime and how we can deal with that.
Well, when I went to law school, this is a question for both of y'all. This town was tobacco, it was textiles, and it was furniture. R.J. Reynolds gave me a job during law school, very fine job, and it's all different now. And I want to ask you this first, how have you made the transition to the aerospace, the economy? And next week, by the way, we're changing our agenda. Paul Mingert, who's chairman of the Piedmont Triad Airport Authority, on which Alan serves, will talk about the airport, how it's a catalyst for growth, what we've done out there. But let's go back to my question. Tobacco's gone. Dell is gone now. How have you changed the economy here? And Nancy, I'm going to ask you the same question in Greensboro.
Well, Nancy said it just perfectly. It's a 20-year overnight success. It was. We knew that these industries were mature at best. Tobacco, textiles, furniture were moving offshore, or in the case of tobacco, were collapsing in on themselves. So we knew we had to do something. That's when we started looking at banking. We recruited BB&T here as their corporate headquarters. Unfortunately, they merged them with SunTrust and moved their headquarters to Charlotte in a neutral arena. But what we've done is, over the years, have added what we think are growing industries that can survive. And then we really started a huge push, Don, on creating an entrepreneurial culture for Winston-Salem and Forsyth County that will create an environment that an individual can start a company,
Excellent.
Grow that company, and really be a scalable company. As a matter of fact, last year, we identified 75 new startups that are potentially scalable companies here in Winston that over the long term will pay great dividends for us.
Nancy, how about Greensboro? Tell us the state of the economy in Greensboro and where things are going.
Very similar to Winston-Salem. We had to look at what the end game was, and we had to diversify our economy. We wanted to focus on small and medium-sized businesses because you saw what happened when the big employers left town. It really left a lot of our residents without the skills that they needed to compete in other jobs. So we have really focused on workforce development and startup. But for the last decade or so, we've really invested a lot of money in infrastructure, our water and sewer, our street. We're very fortunate that we have a great interstates right here in Winston-Salem and Greensboro, and it brings a lot of business in. So, when you're making those investments, they don't make a lot of headlines. They're not really sexy. You don't see them. They're all underground. But it is really what has made the difference today, was that looking what that end game was and really planning on how we could get there. And I know that we are seeing the results now.
All right, let me ask this question to both of y'all while you're standing here. Downtowns are vitally important. When I was a law student here at Wake Forest, downtown was pretty much you wouldn't go down there at all, never went down there. Your downtown is booming, your downtown is booming. What has made that? Has it been in Greensboro, the introduction of Elon Law School downtown? And Winston-Salem is great. The restaurants are great. The places are great. What has the city council and the city done with downtown in Greensboro?
I'm really happy with the growth of downtown Greensboro, and if you haven't been there, I encourage you to come on over and see some of the great restaurants that we have, the museums. A few years ago, we opened the Stephen Tanger Center for Performing Arts, and it has been really huge to the success of downtown. I think in 2 weeks, we're going to start a week run of the Play Chicago, which is a lot of fun. The first year that it opened, there were 400,000 through the Stephen Tanger Center. Not all of those people were from Guilford County, so we were really pleased. They came and they ate in our restaurants, they stayed in our hotels, and they shopped at our stores. And it really was a catalyst for downtown. I would say that was probably the biggest thing we had done. A few years ago, there was the baseball stadium, which is the Greensboro Grasshoppers. We have a friendly bet back and forth, and when the baseball stadium really got up and running is when the recession hit. So we didn't see the growth around the ballpark that we had hoped we would, but we are definitely seeing that growth now. And when we see places like Elon Law come into downtown, and right on the outskirts of downtown, you've got North Carolina A&T and UNC Greensboro and Greensboro College. So we're lucky that we have a lot of college students that can come downtown, and I know that they feel welcome. So I hope that you'll come and take a look at downtown. I know that we spend some time here in Winston-Salem, and they've got a fabulous downtown as well.
Alan, talk about Winston-Salem and downtown.
Thank you. In the past a little over 22 years, there's been $2.1 billion of investment in downtown. Can't believe it. I thought I could keep up with everything, but then it just keeps, like somebody told me one time, it's like getting your downtown redone. It's like pushing a snowball off the mountain. You finally get it to the top, and it'll go on its own momentum there. Hopefully it doesn't roll back on top of you, but it's been a great investment. We were fortunate. We kept a lot of our major office employers there, RJ Reynolds, Wells Fargo, BB&T, and others that kind of kept the solid day-to-day operations there. But then, of course, we have a very active convention center downtown, convention hotels and so on that creates that energy. And then the innovation corridor that I mentioned to you, right adjacent to downtown, creates another level of energy on the east end. On the west side, we have a baseball stadium. We stole the idea from Greensboro, I'll be totally honest with you. We have a baseball stadium sitting over there that kind of anchors the western part, so everything in between is filled. We'll have as many large colleges and universities as Greensboro, but we have 5 kind of surrounding the downtown area, and it creates a great kind of neutral meeting ground for college students to come in there. And we've built the infrastructure. It supports as well with parking, the streetscapes and things of that nature, and programming. We regularly have events, concerts in the street and things of that nature. So it's been a little bit of serendipity. I think it's been a wave all across the country of people returning to the urban core, and we just kind of picked up on that. But we used to jokingly say 20 years ago you could shoot a cannon down 4th Street at 5 o'clock and not hit anybody. But today you can't even get a parking spot now. So
That wasn't a joke back then.
and the bad part is you can't just walk into restaurants anymore. You got to get reservations. So it's a good and bad.
Talk about Salem Parkway. I've lived through this for 9 years driving over here to Wake Forest, and it used to be the Hawthorne Curve was the deadliest place in one of the deadliest places in North Carolina. It was just it was long before Alan got here, but it was a terrible place, and now it's a breeze. I can make it from Greensboro here in 35 minutes at the most. It used to take me 45 to an hour on a good day. How are you working with DOT? And we'll have Mike Fox, who both these two know, who's chairman of the Board of Department of Transportation here, as one of our speakers soon. I know Salem Parkway has come in. The Belt Line is now pretty much complete here. Is that correct?
On the eastern side.
On the eastern side, and it's so easy to get back and forth. I know that has meant a lot. Talk about your relationship with state government, Department of Transportation, and others, and what's that meant to Winston?
We do have very fortunate to have a wonderful division engineer here, Pat Ivy, and we have a great working relationship with him and the folks there. You know, the Beltways is a key part of a city. We were ready to start the western leg of the Beltway back in 1989, and you'll enjoy this. We were sued by a group called the Friends of Forsyth. And these Friends of Forsyth, I like to say, cost us $600 million, because at that time the Beltway was priced at $600 million. By the time we worked through all the lawsuits, all the redoing the environmental work, 12 years later, the price had gone to $1.2 billion. So we finally got it back on track. Oh, by the way, during that same time, our money went away. Nancy got some of it, which is fine. Charlotte got some of it, Fayetteville and others. So we had to get back in line and re-up ourselves. But we finally got it, and the eastern leg is just about finished. Western leg will take a few more years. The downtown project that Professor Vaughn alluded to, which we call Business 40, is now Salem Parkway, went right through the middle of downtown. You've probably seen that. Well, we had a choice. We could either close one lane of it for 6 years, or we could close both lanes totally and get it done in 2 years. We had to redo 7 bridges there. So we had a lot of citizen input, and the decision was, let's just rip the Band-Aid off and do it in 2 years. This is an amazing story. I actually started, DOT finished it in 15 months. But we had, just think about shutting your whole downtown, the whole throughway right in the heart of your downtown down for even 15 months. But a lot of careful planning went in there, a lot of design of how you can get around it. And I did several videos on how you can get from here to there without going through the Beltway. But it was then finished. We had a group called the Creative Corridors Coalition that raised right at $6 million for enhancements to it. If you've driven through there, you've seen the arches and the lights and the bricks and things of that nature that really create a beautiful front door for our city. So it's been a really great project for us, even though we had to live 15 months without it working there.
So Greensboro have been fortunate there to formerly have Doug Gallion, who is the chairman of the Board of Transportation, and then we have Mike Fox, who's the chairman of the Board of Transportation. That has meant a lot to Greensboro's development, though he's in Winston-Salem all the time and other places. But the road design through the airport, everything has finally worked out, and it's just so easy to get back and forth. What hand does the city council play in transportation development? I'm talking about the TRC and the whole thing.
I do want to say, we also just finished our urban loop. I moved here in 1988, and they were talking about it. They started, it was Painter Boulevard, and we finally had the grand opening last year. I mean, that is a long time to work on a loop around the city, but it is going to mean an awful lot for us when it comes to commerce, because it will connect everything out to the airport. It takes an awful lot of time off of people's commute in the morning, and we are just really thrilled to see that urban loop is finally complete. We have a really good relationship with the DOT. We're fortunate that we had Doug Gallion, and now that we have Mike Fox. We get an awful lot of funding through the state and the federal government, and it's important that we always work on our relationships with the state and the federal government. And we were sorry that we got a little bit of Alan's money.
No, you weren't.
Well, no, actually, I wasn't. I was really, and if we didn't get that money, you can imagine we'd still be under construction.
Somebody would have got it.
But that's part again of the long game. What I see that we have in the city, maybe I know this isn't answering your question, but it's that the city of Greensboro, we have growing pains right now. And when a lot of our streets are older, they have to be brought up to standards. The water and sewer, we have pipes that are over 100 years old. And so it's ripping up streets, as you well know. You had a street ripped up in front of you for about a year.
Forever.
But it was to replace water and sewer lines.
It was 100 years old, water and sewer lines, and we're glad you replaced them.
Yes, and so, we have to go for larger lines and better lines, because a lot of the old ones have lead in them, and certainly we don't want to have lead lines. And then, the pottery lines, really, they just compact, and, you end up with a sinkhole. So we are investing an awful lot of money in infrastructure, and we're still going to see it over years, but right now, sometimes it can be hard to get around in the city. But it's growing pains, and a couple of years from now, we're not even going to remember it. Kind of like what you did that was a very brave decision.
Yeah. Worked out okay, but at the beginning of it, everybody took a lot of deep breaths.
Yep.
All right, we're going to talk about this a lot, and we're actually going to bring in Burger King hats for everybody to wear, because the legislature is the real king in North Carolina, as it is in every state. Now, most of these folk are going to practice somewhere else besides here. Some are going to practice here in North Carolina. But the legislature in almost every state, and particularly North Carolina, is king. They're the ones, these folk are creatures of the legislature. And anytime you want to raise a tax or do anything, it has to be done with legislative approval. Now, Nancy has caught grief from a lot of people, and a lot of applause over having a restaurant tax, a 1 cent tax. Talk about where that is in the process. I know it's controversial. Some people love it and some people don't.
So we are in the beginning stages of that. And it's really not a restaurant tax. It is a consumer tax. It would be a 1% prepared food tax to help us when it comes to entertainment, tourism, and cultural arts.
But you have to go to the legislature to get approval.
We do, and we have to go get their approval, whether to do it with or without a referendum. And often what happens when you put something on a referendum, it would say, do you support a prepared food tax, yes or no? We will probably go for a referendum. We would like to be able to change that verbiage to, do you support a prepared food tax for the arts, entertainment, sports, and tourism industry? That is much more likely to get a yes. We had a school bond, that passed, which was $1.7 billion. To go along with that, there was a 1/4 cent sales tax. People voted for the school bonds overwhelmingly, but voted against the sales tax, which was really needed to help build the schools, because it just says, do you support a 1/4 cent sales tax? And so people didn't have the confidence that it would go just for schools, that it would end up in the general budget and used for other things. The city of Greensboro, the state of North Carolina is called a Dillon Rule state. And
Excellent.
That means that we have to go to the legislature for permission on just about everything.
Mother, may I?
Yes.
And mother is the legislature.
Yes, we have to go to the legislature, and the other is a home rule state, where cities are strong and they can set their own agendas and the way that they're going to finance things. So being a Dillon Rule state is a little bit more difficult. Often mayors will be out from all over the country talking about how I did this and I did this, and people will say, how come you can't do those things? And the reason why we can't do them in the state of North Carolina is because we are part-time employees. I got an assistant for the first time this year after 10 years. Other states, they are the lead executive officer of the city that they're in. They've got their own cabinet. They approve the budget. It is just totally different animal. So in North Carolina, it's a little harder to get things done.
What have you, relationship with the legislature, where are y'all? Y'all haven't proposed a 1 cent tax, have you?
We have not at this point. I hope yours goes well smoothly. We won't tag on to that. But we are creatures of the state. We can only do those things that the state says you can do, and sometimes we get things taken away from us that they say you can't do anymore. Fortunately, we do have a good delegation that we work with. Donnie Lambeth is the head of our local delegation, former president of Baptist Hospital, so he understands economic development. But it can get dicey when you have a legislature that really doesn't understand what it takes to create jobs and create economic development. But fortunately, that we have a good relationship now. Got to look for different revenue sources. Property taxes are our main source. And you can only go so high before you start having revolts. We have our own Bastille Day here in Winston-Salem. But sales tax, again, is one that gives us a great deal of revenues. But the prepared foods tax is a great use of it there. And Nancy's exactly right. How you place it on the on the ballot is key to it. We've had, ballots as well, and you really want to spend a lot of time thinking about what it says on there.
And what you put on there with it to help carry
Exactly.
things
That's
with it.
right.
And we're going to discuss this later on. Now, both of y'all have professional lobbyists that represent your cities. And talk about that relationship. Why did you hire? Who it was? How do you interact with them? Do they come and see the council? Does the mayor make the call? How about Greensboro? Who have y'all got now?
So we have McGuire Woods. We also, for the first time, have a legislative liaison. She was just recently hired. This is the first time that we've had a session with her, and it is really helpful to be able to reach out to your legislators. We've got a good delegation, too, and we've got a great
It was better when I
relationship.
was in it.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And interestingly enough, Phil Berger is now in our delegation. So we hope that that will give us a more direct line with him. And everybody wants to be part of an area that is successful. And I think that might be one of the reasons why, when it got redistricted, that he put himself back into the city of Greensboro. Of course, he double bunked you a couple years ago. And
It's been 11 and a half, but who remembers? Who remembers?
You do.
But it's important that you've got somebody up at the legislature on a regular basis. It's not only to monitor the bills that you want to go through, it's to monitor bills that other people submit that are going to have a direct impact on your community. So by having a lobbyist and by having a full-time staff member to be able to look at all of those bills, and there are thousands that are put through every session, it's good to have somebody whose eyes can be on it 100% of the time.
And what do y'all have in Winston?
We have two lobbyists. One, Leslie Mazingo and her firm to lobby the federal level. Does a great job primarily to go after grants and things of that nature. But as Nancy said, we do have a full-time lobbyist in Raleigh to keep an eye on things. Things happen. They're crazy in the middle of the night, as you know, Don. As a matter of fact, we had a really bad bill get slipped through at 2 o'clock in the morning about a month ago, and creating a civil service board requiring the city of Winston-Salem to have a civil service board for police and fire. And slipped on through without any discussion.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And so eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. You got to keep up with the legislature, and they are king. They can change just like that and have an effect. All right, let's move just a minute, and you know this question is coming, on police. Police have been the hot button topic for municipalities across the nation. Have the recent new emphasis on police changed either one of y'all? I know y'all need 120 police officers if they could hire them, but you can't hire them right now. You're probably down 100 or so.
140.
140. Imagine having a force out there that's protecting y'all as law students here. And they're overworked. They're, I would say, underpaid overall compared to other cities. What are y'all doing about police? Is there anything new than it was than when you took office years ago? I'll let you go first.
Thank you. Yeah, we are trying to get our salaries up so we can be competitive. Actually, some cities in North Carolina, some small cities, are paying starting salaries of $62,000 a year for a police officer. We just upped ours to $52,000. It's probably on par with Greensboro a little bit. And so we're trying to be competitive. We've improved our take-home car policy, increased some of the benefits there. But so much of it is really police officers just tired of getting beaten up on all the time. You know, the negative impacts that they get criticized for everything. They know that everybody's looking at them on there. But we're having to come up with different ways of doing things, a lot more technology. We've created a real-time crime center where we have literally thousands of cameras tied back into the real-time crime center. We put in place something called a shot spotter program, which will triangulate anytime a gunshot goes off in a particular area of the city, give immediate time and location to the police officers. Actually, we had one night before last where the police officers got there before the call was even came in. And then we've got some social programs that we put in place to try to deal with it. A thing called CURE, which we send counselors and people we call violence interrupters into hot spots in the city that work with young people particularly in saying, you know, we know you're going to get angry with each other, we know there's going to be disagreements, but there are ways to deal with that without going to violence there. And then we created another program called BEAR, Behavioral Evaluation and Response, where we've actually assigned 7 mental health professionals at 7 different fire stations around the city. We'll actually dispatch them, sometimes by themselves, sometimes with a police officer, with an idea that they can diffuse situations involving mental health issues. And we've only had it in place about 5 months, and we've already dispatched them 500 times.
Wow. What's Greensboro done?
So we've done many of the same things that Alan mentioned. We do have a real-time crime center, which is getting up and running right now, which I believe they visited yours and decided that we needed one. We do have a Cure Violence program, which works with violence interrupters. We do have a co-response model, so depending on 911, depending on what that call looks like, that there are mental health workers who are dispatched with the police. Once the scene is secured, the police step back and the mental health workers take over. We were looking at a number of things that we could do to help take the burden off of police officers, and our former police chief, he recommended that we have civilian traffic investigators. We couldn't get it through last session. This session, it went through statewide, so you never know what happens up in
That's the mother may I to the legislature. I mean, they're the king.
And so we hire non-sworn positions, and if there is an accident that does not involve personal injury, they can go out and investigate the scene. How often do you drive by an accident and you see 3 or 4 police cars? So the idea is not to have police to do those things, but to respond to higher priority issues. We have increased our starting pay to $55,000.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that means you got to go up.
$55,000 through the academy, and then they get a 4% raise once they complete the academy. And then there are a bunch of add-ons. If they have
Signing bonus?
signing bonus, if they have military background, if they speak 2 languages, if they prefer to work the night shift, there are all different ways that they can get that salary up. We will graduate a class next week. It will be one of the smaller classes, but we appear to be looking at a full class.
Good.
And maybe full for the one following that.
That's great.
You know, being a police officer right now is probably one of the hardest jobs, and there aren't a lot of people who want to be police officers. And what we want is our police department to reflect the makeup of our city, to reflect the demographics. And right now, it doesn't. We are a minority city, but even with their aggressive recruitment, we still have a majority white police force. We have a very large immigrant and refugee community. We are trying to get them involved with public safety. You know, we would love to have some of those individuals be police officers so that they can explain to their community in their first language what is going on. We started an Office of Community Safety, which is run by the same person who runs our behavioral heart response team. And we met today with the county and some local leaders to talk about the social determinants of poverty and how that adds to higher crime statistics. So I think we're trying to cover all the bases, but it'll take a little while to get there.
All right, so we're coming back around in all this, back to basic governance. And y'all are still called aldermen, right?
No, it's council.
It's council now. When did you change?
About 15 years ago.
Right. Why did y'all change?
felt like that alderman was more of an archaic term, you know, kind of a little bit of a negative connotation to it as opposed to a counselor representing it.
And you have how many folk on your council?
There are 8 council members plus myself, so 9 total.
And how many are at large and how many are at
They're
district?
all listed by district.
They're all listed by district. Greensboro has what exactly?
So we have 9. We have 5 districts, 3 people at large, and then the mayor who was voted on separately. And that's the way that we are made up.
And you have a committee system.
We do.
That seems to work, and you really don't have a committee system like most towns have.
We tried to do the committee system that Winston-Salem has, and it just didn't work for us because, quite frankly, it was difficult for some council members to take the direction of the committee. And it seemed like every time that something came before council, we had to rehear everything, so we just decided the committee system didn't work for us. It works great for you.
Yeah, yes.
Now, you don't take a salary, correct?
Correct.
How much do your council people get paid?
Don, I think they make around 29, 30,000 a year, something like that.
So don't plan to, make a living doing it, I don't think.
But ask how much our city attorney makes.
How much does your city attorney make?
I think about 210, something like that.
210.
Yeah, I think we're around 240.
And your council people make how much?
Amazing benefits. So I make $32,000 a year. I think the mayor pro tem makes about 30,000, at large about 28, and then the district's 26.
And you have how many employees with the city of Winston-Salem?
About 2,400.
And you have about
32.
3,200, wow. And you run a coliseum.
We do.
And your coliseum people run the Winston-Salem Coliseum, is that still correct?
Well, I think
It's ending, I think.
It's ending.
It's ending, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that interesting relationship to have?
Mm-hmm.
But Matt Brown, the fellow who's done this, has done an amazing job, and he's finally going to retire, I think.
Oh, is he?
Or coming close to retirement. But that system has worked well over the years. All right, so we're going to have 5 minutes of questions, so we're able to get this on the media here. If someone will ask a question, I'm going to re-ask it here, make sure I get it right. Who would like to have the first question? Question back here. And if you'd give us your name and where you're from. Ashboro.
Yes, my name is Lake McDuffie. I was born and raised in Ashburn, North Carolina. So anytime we wanted a steak or going to go to a concert, we always had to go to Greensboro and Salem. In fact, we still do. But my question is, if you could give a rough percentage of, you have new businesses come in, corporations and companies, small, medium, large, extra large, all different sizes. If you can give a rough percentage of how many of those you or the Chamber of Commerce tries to get in versus just wants to come here voluntarily.
Okay, so the question is, how effective is city leadership in dragging in business as compared to business that would normally come? And I can answer part of this. Part of this is because the universities are here, and that drags their own business.
Right.
How about Winston-Salem?
Yeah, I think statistics will generally show that a community would only get about 10% of their new jobs from companies that were recruited to the city. The vast majority, 80%, come from existing companies expanding, adding jobs in there. But as a city, you've got to create an environment and support that job growth and job expansion by keeping your tax rates as low as possible, providing good services. So.
And you understand the question. How much does the city do, and how much is just natural because of the way the city's situated?
So I think that we're seeing a lot of organic growth right now. We're come on, visit us. We'll have a Topgolf pretty soon. When you see a company like Topgolf and Trader Joe's, when they locate into a community, site selectors actually look for certain types of businesses that are in the area because they know that it is a business-friendly area. The jobs that we talked about, HondaJet recently expanded out at the airport, the other ones that were mentioned earlier. The nice thing about those jobs is they bring the spin-off jobs. And for every job that Toyota brings, there are probably another 5 jobs that come to support them. The Chamber of Commerce really focuses on the big fish. But we are really happy to see all of the organic growth through our region.
Now, you've headed up the Governor's Economic Board over the years. Where is your economy? Is it because the city is doing good things? Is it natural? Is it because of Wake Forest University, Winston-Salem State, the other schools here? What's the reason for your growth? Is it?
I think it's all the above. Basically, you have a great environment of universities, colleges, research that's going on there. You've got a city with good services, relatively low cost of doing business, and great infrastructure that can support it. And then you've got a business-friendly city government that says we want business to come and grow and come here. Years and years ago, Don, when R.J. Reynolds was the king, the word was Winston-Salem didn't want new businesses. And so it took us for a long time to change that image, as Reynolds kind of went down a little bit. But I think it's a whole combination of everything. You have to have a very aggressive recruitment effort because you want to get your share of the new companies that are out there looking. And the good thing about it, as Nancy alluded to, the Toyota battery plant and others there, they don't want their suppliers right beside of them because they'll be fishing in the same pool for workforce. They said they want their folks to be within 30 miles, but no more than 60. And guess what? That puts us right in the sweet spot to being able to recruit their suppliers.
And your unemployment rate is what here?
3.3% right now.
How about Greensboro?
I think we're at 4.2.
Okay, so it's,
Yeah, relatively.
if you want to get a job, you should be able to find one.
Well, and to that point, all of the great job announcements that we've had, $5.1 billion in the first 7 months of this year, they're not really going to mean anything to us unless we put our residents to work. There are people who are unemployed and underemployed, and we need to make sure that we are giving them the skill set to compete for the jobs that we see coming in. If we have a bunch of people come from other places and fill those jobs, it's really not doing what we wanted to do, which is to raise the standard of living.
Now, next week, we're going to talk about the airport as a catalyst for growth, and Paul Mingert will be here. So on your syllabus, we're doing something else. So next week will be Paul to talk about the airport for half of the time. He'll talk about his chairmanship there, and then he's going to talk about homeowner associations. He's one of the world's best experts on homeowner associations. So look that in your syllabus, and we're going to talk about what has happened to the airport, how cooperation has made this, but it also creates problems. How are we going to house these people? How are we going? We've got thousands of people coming into this area, and you got to have the schools to be able to train the kids with. They all speak different languages now. It's not all English anymore. It's 10% or something like that speaks another language. And the challenges that you have to make with the legislature, the school board, the Board of Education, it makes a huge intergovernmental problem.
Well, and I think that goes back to the growing pains that I was talking about. We were having an issue with housing before we had all these great job announcements. We talk a lot about affordable housing, but I like to talk about attainable housing because we need people to be able to find houses at all different price points. And as you see that the more people that can buy within their price point, it actually opens up downstream housing. So we are focused on bringing more housing at all price points into the city, as well as the jobs. And some of the biggest issues that we have right now, or since we can't annex anymore, is infill development. And I imagine that you have the same type of zoning meetings that we have, which are very, very challenging when it's possible to change the character of an area.
Well, annexation, we will get into annexation. It used to be a whole different ballgame, and the legislature as king has changed all that now. And we will discuss that in the future. We're going to wrap this up. Let's thank Alan Joines and Nancy Vaughn for taking the time in the afternoon to come share this with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is now 3:40, and we will take a break.
3:20.
What does it say?
Well, it's like 3:18.
3:18. We'll call it 3:20, and we will break now. We'll see everybody back in 12 minutes. Thank you, everybody. John Graham, thank you for coming. And next, we're going to talk about the practicalities, how to use all this information in the real practice of law. That will be next. See you in 12 minutes.